Namaskar. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to webinar series 09 on risks and control in procurement to payment process, organized by the Internal Audit Standards Board of ICI. I am CA Shailesh Bore, and I will be your moderator for this session. This topic is of immense importance as P2P is not just a financial cycle, it is the lifeline of operational integrity. Whether you are in audit, compliance, or finance, understanding its risk profile is very vital. Now, in absentia, CA Chandrasekhar Vasant Chitlech, who will be the chairman of Internal Audit Standards Board ICA and also CCM, he will join in between. In his absentia, I will introduce and set the tone for this session. The procure to pay cycle is among the most exposed to risk, fraud, inefficiencies, and manual errors. From vendor selection to invoice processing, every step demands vigilance and strong controls. To guide us through this today, we have with us an exceptional professional, CA Gaurav Mishraji. Gauravji is a result-oriented Big Four professional with nearly 9 years of experience in business development, project management, internal audit across diverse industries manufacturing, steel, hospitality, infrastructure, and IT BPO. He specializes in process audit, SOP redesigning, internal control implementation, identifying automation opportunities to drive efficiency, conducting risk assessment, compliance reviews, and fraud investigation. Technologically adept. He is very versed with Oracle, SAP, tools like Power BI, ensuring the data-driven insight back every recommendation. Mishraji is also visiting faculty for the certificate course on internal audit conducted by ICA, a regular speaker for this board and also CPK committee, and was the co-author of the book on internal audit published by WRCF ICA. And because of this, I invite CA Gaurav Mishraji to lead us today into today's session. Gauravji, I will also take your permission when chairman will join the session in between. Yes. Meanwhile, I request to lead the session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Shailesh. It was a nice introduction, which is unexpected that yes, these are all about me. But first of all, I would like to give or say my thanks, heartful thanks to chairman of the Board of Internal Audit and Management Accounting and the vice chairman. And both are definitely the exceptional leader. One thing I can say that I had a very small interaction with Chitleji, and I can say that he's the person who will say either yes, either no. It means that if something is possible, they will definitely say yes, this is doable. If something is not possible, this is not doable. And even as the nominated member for the Board of Internal Audit, I was attending one of the seminar, one of the you can say that meeting where the thought process of Chitleji was very clear that is these things are going to be revised and we are not going to start any courses till the time these will not be revised. So once again, I'll say thanks and heartful thanks to the chairman and the vice chairman of the board and definitely our today's moderator Shailesh. Thank you so much, sir. And before starting the session, definitely I would like to say thanks to the staff, Arunji and the technical staff for organizing such a regular webinar on this particular topic. So as Shailesh rightly said that procurement to pay definitely for any of the industry, if you say, so procurement is one of the area where you will find a lot of fraud indicators because this is totally subjective. And yes, of course, there are certain parameters, there are certain areas where there will always be a loopholes or you can say that gray area. And those areas are always a high importance area or you can say that focus area for any of the company. Now, if I talk about the company, so be it a real estate company, be it a manufacturing company, be it a technology based company, be it any service sector industry, definitely procurement to pay entire cycle is one of the you can say that favorite for everyone, be it the auditor or be it the auditee. As an auditor, definitely I can say that this is one of the area where we find a lot of improvements. If we talk about the cost improvements, that cost saving plans, or from you can say that process perspective or fraud indicators. So this is one of the area which is very favorite topic for the auditors. Now coming to the part of procurement to pay, if I say, so procurement to pay, if I really talk about, so it will start from the demand planning. So I'll request to attendees to post their questions so that it can be more interactive. So now coming to the part of procurement to pay. So procurement will start always from the planning part, because if the planning is not proper, then subsequent activity is also not proper. I'm just taking one example. So let us take, so we are a manufacturer of steel, and while manufacturing the steel rods, there's a one important material called as iron ore, as well as you can say that coal, which is being used to burn the furnace. Suppose if the requirement, or you can say that planning for the coal procurement is not proper, you can say that is, suppose if X tonnage was required to produce certain quantity of the steel, because it's a, in that particular case, your coal procurement may be on the higher side or maybe on the lower side, subject to, and it is going to impact your pricing as well as the costing fundamental thing. So this is a small part about the planning. And now if I talk about, you can say that planning, if I tell you from the summary perspective, or you can say that on a story perspective. So let us take one example from our home, that whenever we are going to buy a household things, so what is the normal fundamental things? We normally make a list that these are the items which we require. These are the items which we require to run the entire household expenses. And if suppose that planning is poor, it means there may be high chances, if your planning is poor, there may be high chances that you may buy higher quantity of household things and you may buy lower quantity of household. It's a vice versa. So just from the perspective, so let us understand the entire procurement to pay process and risk around the procurement to pay process in a very layman language rather than a very PPT driven or something. Now coming to the example, that is, we talked about the planning. Yes, the planning is started for procurement of the goods. So how the planning will start? How you can say that you require X quantity of material, or how a manufacturing company, in my example, a steel manufacturing company will be the ideal example, and I'll take this particular company name. Whenever I will say company, it means that I'm illustrating the example of a steel manufacturing company. Now coming to the part, how you derive your demand, how you perform the demand planning, which is very, very, very important thing. What is your end output? आपका end output क्या है? उस end output को achieve करने के लिए आपको कितना input raw material लगेगा, कितने spares and consumable लगेंगे, कितना power consumption लगेगा, कितना water consumption लगेगा, कितने all other materials लगेंगे. It means if your output is certain, and based on that output, you will perform the planning for the procurement of raw material, beta consumable, spares, and all those things. Means in procurement to pay part, we need to relook first from the order to cash process. If we talk about the order to cash process, there's a sub process called a sale of finished goods. It means whatever the customer demand is there for the particular month, in that particular case, to produce that particular quantity, organization need to procure X number of inputs. So means if we talk about the procurement, we need to go one step back and relook into your order to cash process, and into the order to cash process, there's a sub process called as finished goods, sale of finished goods. So this is one of the important thing. Now coming to the part, yes, I have derived to the demand planning. Now what is the case? If the demand planning is there, now someone can say, can there be a fraud indicator while the demand planning? I'll definitely say yes. This is one of the important things. अगर डिमांड प्लानिंग पे आपने कोई भी प्रॉब्लम करी, based on the demand planning, and who perform the demand planning, let us understand who perform the demand planning. Demand planning is basically performed by the user department who engaged into production of that particular material. Means मेरे एग्जांपल में जो स्टील मैन्युफैक्चरिंग कंपनी है, in that particular case, the production head is user department who will say that yes, if we want to produce X quantity of steel rod or steel billet, we need X tonnage of the raw material, beta iron ore, beta calcine light, beta coal and all. So this is one of the case. Now, user department has raised the request. User department ने request raise करा. After raising the request by the user department, there's an ideal process that the requisition, and there's a high chances, I'll talk from the perspective that this industry is having a at least adequate IT mechanism. Requirement has been raised to system. Now that requirement raised to system has gone to stores department. Now the stores department, what they will do? Stores department will check whether all these materials are available within the stock or not. And if yes, that material is available, then there, or you can say that stores department, what they will do? They will either reduce the quantity what user department has asked to procure, or stores department will go and check back, or you can say that circle back with the user department that, hey, user department, you don't require this particular item because we already are having this particular number of stock. It means there's a control mechanism जहां पे स्टोर डिपार्टमेंट यूजर डिपार्टमेंट को उसकी मनमानी करने के लिए रोक दिया. क्या ऐसा भी हो सकता है कि स्टोर डिपार्टमेंट के पास आए भी नहीं? डेफिनेटली ऐसा हो सकता है. डेफिनेटली ऐसा हो सकता है. And in that case, there's a high chances that if user department require X quantity, if user department require X quantity, but they may raise the requisition for X plus 1 quantity. This is about, you can say, that requirement planning as well as raising of the requisition. Once the requisition has been raised by the user department and verified by the stores department, then that particular requisition will be approved. And once the requisition approved, functions of the procurement department will start. So in nutshell, if I tell you, रिक्वायरमेंट प्लानिंग यूजर डिपार्टमेंट करेगा, उस रिक्वायरमेंट प्लानिंग को करने के बाद में स्टोर डिपार्टमेंट उस रिक्वायरमेंट प्लानिंग और उस रिक्विजिशन को वैलिडेट करेगा, और जैसे ही वैलिडेट करेगा उसके बाद वो प्रोक्योरमेंट डिपार्टमेंट के पास में आएगा टू स्टार्ट द फंक्शन. So I just want to understand if there is any questions till now or not, then we can proceed.
No, sir, no question, Peter.
Okay.
You
So let
can
us
proceed.
come to the part. So now the functions of the purchase department will start. Purchase department, आप एक simply visualize, we should visualize that how the purchase department will work and how that particular function is working. एक सिंपल, आपके पास एक रिक्वायरमेंट आती है अपने हाउस होल्ड सामान को खरीदने के लिए, आप उस लिस्ट को लेकर के आते हो और आप मार्केट में जाते हो and you negotiate with 3 to 4 vendors with a good quality of vendors, or the vendors who provide the good quality of the products, and based on that negotiation आप जो बेस्ट होता है आप पैसे बचाने की कोशिश करते हैं. द बेस्ट commercial in that particular case you raise the you purchase the material, and once you purchase the material you come to home and say to your kitchen people that hey, this is the item what we have procured, and what they will do, they will verify whether all the items what we have listed in the requirement whether we have received or not. The same thing applies in the industry. Purchase department will raise a requisition, or sorry, purchase department will start working on the requisition and will see who all are the vendors. Purchase department will raise, or you can say that will request, or you can say that raise and request for quotations to multiple vendors who are already onboarded within the system, and sometimes they also find out the new vendor for the price competitiveness. Now coming to the part, सारे वेंडर्स को कोटेशन चले गए, कोटेशंस का मेल चला गया. नाउ वेंडर विल स्टार्ट asking, vendor will start collating all the quotations. Suppose if all the quotations they have received within the stipulated time, now they will prepare the comparative statement. अब आप एक चीज अंडरस्टैंड करो कि मैं कोई चीज कमर्शियल में आने के पहले मैं सबसे पहले क्या करूंगा, टेक्निकल उसका देखूंगा कि वेदर क्वालिटी वाइज दैट प्रोडक्ट इज गुड और नॉट, वेंडर क्वालिटी वाइज दैट वेंडर इज गुड और नॉट, मार्केट में कहीं डिफॉल्टर तो नहीं है. Now coming to the part, based on that quotation, they will prepare the technical comparison. The technical comparison, they will get it approved from user department. And after that, they will start commercial negotiation with the vendor. After the commercial negotiation, there will be certain DOA metrics, which we called as delegation of authority metrics. Sometimes these are called as ROP, rules of procedures. These are the industry words. After this, they will finally negotiate and obtain the approval from the approving authority as per DOA or ROP. After this, they will place a purchase order for the ordering of the material. After ordering the material, after certain period of time, vendor will deliver the material to the company's gate. After once the company will once the vehicle will reach at the company gate, security will check about the vehicles, that whether the vehicle is legal through its registry or other papers. The second part is they will check whether the material is there or not. Vehicle will reach at a stores department will verify whether whatever the item was mentioned in the purchase order, whether that item have been delivered by the vendor or not. And in all these steps, there are risks. We will understand. I'm just explaining the process that how the entire procurement to pay function works. After this, the store department will prepare a GRN called as good receipt note. GRN will be prepared by the stores department, and the quality inspection of the products will be done by the user department or the quality department if it's a pure quality related material. After this, once the GRN has been recorded, assuming that all the material have been accepted, the stores department will issue the material to the user department based on the consumption request received from user department. After this, they will consume the material and then the bill will be booked by the finance department. And once the finance department has booked the bill at the due date, payments needs to be done to the vendor. These are the overall structure, or you can say the topic of procurement to pay. And if we talk about that other like vendor performance evaluation, something, these are also the part of vendor performance evaluation. So this is about the overall procurement to pay process. I'll take a pause for a minute and then we'll understand that what are the relevant or you can say that key risk which exist at each sub process, be it a demand planning, be it a requisition creation, be it a PO raising, GRN quality and all. I'll take a pause for a minute, then again from 5:30, we'll understand that what is the relevant risk. Meanwhile, let me just open my PPT. Hope my screen is visible to everyone.
Yes, yes, it's quite visible.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Okay. So let us understand. So this is again which we already discussed, that about how the procurement process looks like. So this is again, these are some of the overview, that supplier analysis and management, which we already discussed, that at the time of receiving of the requisition, what we do, we raise the request for quotations to all the potential vendors who are registered within the system. And sometimes we also search for, or most of the times we also search for the new vendors. Process requisition or purchase requisition, then the process of purchase order creation. After the purchase order, then you will receive that good receipt, and after this payment, prior, and then invoice booking, and then payment process. This I'm not going to run through. This is a very simple, that what do you mean by procurement? It is simply that what is the acquisition of goods and services at the best possible cost. It means a procurement. But what if it is not purchased, or you can say that acquired at a best possible cost, whether that is procurement or not? Yes, definitely. See, whether the procurement done at a best possible cost or not done at a possible cost, any acquisition of the goods and services is called as a procurement. I have taken few of the examples that what category we take, and these are the examples which I normally take in all the webinars or seminars. This we have already discussed. This is the component of the procurement process. And this we have already discussed, that is procurement planning करनी है आपको. Then vendor management, that is evaluating and selecting vendors as well as reviewing vendor performance periodically. Next part is requisition and purchasing, and next part is receiving and warehousing, which also called as GRM. Then invoice processing and payables. These are the component, or you can say that sub process within the procurement to pay process. And I can give you the guarantee that no specific skill sets is required, at least for the procurement process. In the internal audit, for few of the technical area, if you leave, the entire things will run around your 360-degree view, how attentive you are, how analytical mind you are having. These are the things. So it's a very simple, that how that entire procurement function works. This is the typical process document, which I have tried to mention here, that during each of the sub process, what are the illustrative documents which we use to obtain. And these are the most popular. These are the illustrative, not the final one. Now coming to the part of ER oblique indent. Sometimes you will heard it is called as indent, sometimes you will called as purchase requisition. Now coming to the part, let us apply our chartered accountancy mind, whether purchase requisition or indent is financial document or non-financial document. So purchase requisition or indent, including purchase order, they are the non-financial document. एंड इनके डॉक्यूमेंट के जनरेट होने से अकाउंटिंग बुक्स में कोई इम्पैक्ट नहीं होगा, except open PO for the capex item which we mention into the contingent liability, that these are the capex item or open PO which is open. Now coming to the part of GRN, goods receipt note. These are few of the terminology. Goods received note. This is also called as GIN, goods inward note. Because in the system, each and every step is linked with certain documents, or you can say that certain activity. आप कोई भी ट्रांजेक्शन करोगे, उसके बैकएंड में एक अकाउंटिंग एंट्री एज वेल एज उसके डॉक्यूमेंट्स जनरेट होते हैं. Now coming to the part of invoice. Invoice is nothing but a vendor invoice which we used to talk. Last we are coming to the bill of material oblique bill of quantity. अब आप मेरे को बताओ, you just apply your mind that what is bill of material. बॉम आपने काफी सुना होगा. So bill of material is nothing but you can say that what you can say it's a recipe कि आपको क्या बनाना है उसके हिसाब से. This is called as bill of material. एक टन स्टील को मैन्युफैक्चर करने के लिए आपको कितना रॉ मटेरियल चाहिए, कितना कोल चाहिए, कितना वाटर चाहिए, बिकॉज तभी तो मेरा कॉस्टिंग हिट होगा ना. सो दिस इज कॉल्ड एज दिस. Now coming to the part of request for quotations. Request for quotations which I explained you earlier as well. Request for quotation means a mail communication where commercial department is asking that yes, please provide our best possible quotations, which should have a lot of parameters like item or description of the service, unit of measurement, delivery date, packing, unpacking, all those things. It should be very clear. Request for quotation mail should be very clear so that whenever vendor is submitting the request for quotation, it should be clear. Otherwise, यहाँ पे एक रिस्क क्या होगा सबसे बड़ा, आपको आइटम तो चाहिए थे एक्स बट आपने मंगवा लिए वाई. इट्स अ वेरी नॉमिनल चेंजेस डिस्क्रिप्शन में. इट मीन्स अगर आपने ये गलती वहां नहीं करी होती तो this is the case. Now coming to the part of MRP. Now coming to the part of MRP, material requisition planning. So material requisition planning, which we talk, that again sometimes what you will find somewhere it is a manual activity, somewhere it's a automated activity. And if we talk about MRP, so let us go and let us go to our original concept where we were discussing about the planning, that how to plan for the material. So जहां पे हमने ये डिस्कस करा था कि एक फिनिश गुड्स को बनाने के लिए आपको क्या क्या आइटम चाहिए, दैट इज कॉल्ड एज मटेरियल रिक्वायरमेंट प्लानिंग. And in the best environment you will find into the system. It's a back reverse calculation. If you put that, yes, you in this particular month you need to produce X tonnage of the output, system will give you the entire result that yes, you require X number of hours. Now someone may ask the question or some questions may arise into someone's mind. वो क्वेश्चन क्या हो सकता है? Are there any chances where system can give the incorrect report, or you can say that give the planning data without considering the stock in hand or PO in pipeline? Yes, definitely. There may be the chances. Again, it all depends upon the configuration. Sometimes you will find out that system will consider the existing stock available situation. System will consider that open PO situation and then will give this is the exact requirement. It means this scenario, what we discuss right now, is the ideal scenario where system will give you the relevant data that yes, this is the net quantity which we require. Now coming to the part of annual rate contract. It is nothing. It is annual rate contract like you entered into an agreement with the vendor and vendor will deliver the material on month or as per your requirement. Now the thing is, if you think Annual rate contracts, basically you decide the rate at starting of the year or starting of the contract period. And in that particular period, or you can say that in that particular contract period, you buy the material or services at this particular rate. So this is called as annual rate contract. So these are few of the terms which when you will do the audit, or if someone is doing the audit, they are finding it. Now coming to the part that these are the procurement part, because we all are aware that कि क्या क्या चीजें होती हैं क्या क्या चीजें नहीं होती हैं. Can you? This
Gauravji,
is
sorry to interrupt. There is one question. So one by one, we are
please,
taking it session and making it much more interactive. So
definitely,
sorry to
definitely.
interrupt. There is one question. It's really interesting. Ki what about the procurement of the services? By Vaibhav Pathak, he has asked the questions. So I request if you can enlighten on the said query.
Okay. So in terms of, okay, thank you, Weber, for this question. So if I interpreted the question in a right way, so just please text on the chat box, that is okay. Procurement of services, if I say. Now let us take one example. I'll take the very, you can say the common example, like housekeeping services of the entire plant, or you can say that painting of the entire building. Is this the case? I'm taking the example. Suppose if I took the example of painting of any of the plant building. Now let us understand how this entire functions will work. Who will give? Now there are two scenarios. You will see, you will oftenly find a case where you can say that there were no requirement for painting of the any of the building, but management can say no. Someone special, or you can say some VIP guest to, or you can say that customers or you that company's chairman are coming, so that's the reason we are doing this, or upkeeping of the entire plant, be it a housekeeping, be it a gardening, and all those things. Whenever you will start the services, so while negotiating for the procurement of the services, the best part is you need to be very sure and very clear about the scope of work, what you want basically. This is one thing which is very important. If the scope of work is not clear, like let us take one example. If you said that this, we are asking for the quotations for procurement of services. Now there are two parts. Who will supply the material and who will supply the services? Whether you are asking for the quotations inclusive of the material, or for services inclusive of the material or exclusive of the material. So in this particular case, the important part is scope of work, which is very important. And again, now coming to the part, you will ask for the quotations from various contractors. You will identify whether yes, these contractors are regular in the compliances like GST, TDS, PF, and all those things. And you will understand that their credentials in the past, if something is new. And if some vendors who are doing these type of contractors, these type of services, doing existing services within your company, then you will definitely assess that whether the best rate I can get or not. And based on that negotiation, you will define an agreement, and on that agreement, you will prepare a normal agreement and then prepare a service orders, and then all those things. So, like in case of, I'm again going back to my previous slide where I mentioned about GRN and GIN. But in case of service, it is called as service entry sheet or service receipt note. So this is all about procurement of services. Hope I am able to answer your questions. Is it what you were expecting, Webber? Now I'm coming to the part that who procures. So this is one of the, you can say, one of the ideal department structures for a big company, that how the entire procurement function works. There's a procurement committee which takes care of the big value of the contract, big value of the purchases. And these are the head of the material management. If I talk about head of the material management, under this head of the procurement and head of the stores come. But sometimes you also find out that to avoid the situations of segregation of duties, stores department is a separate function which directly report to the plant head or CEO, not to the commercial department. Purchase department sometimes also called as a commercial department. And commercial department is a wide function who takes care of purchase of materials, services, logistics, negotiations, and all. So these are some of the ideal scenario of the procurement function. This again we discussed that how the procurement planning function works, that this is the procurement planning. So see, we were discussing about कि जब भी आपको procurement to pay process करना है ना, तो go and circle back your thought process around sales, order to cash, and in that finished goods. After this, you will see that entire production planning will start, then material, then lead times, born or historical consumptions, then they will assess that what is the inventory level. After this procurement plan is prepared. These are the entire scenario. Next part will come on the vendor management. The risk, I'm not going risk, I'll discuss at a separate part, but first let us easily understand this one. This is about the vendor management. If we talk about that procurement planning आ गया, आपने advertisement निकाला, चाहे वो material के लिए हो या services के लिए हो, and sometimes these advertisements you will not find the cases, you will find that this mail communication has been sent to all the vendors. And after this you see vendor ने यहाँ पे अपना quotation submit करना चालू करा, vendor के पास गया, vendor ने quotation submit करना चालू करा, procurement committee के पास गया, उन्होंने approve करा, then vendor onboarding हुआ, vendor ने performance evaluation. So this is again the vendor management. Now coming to the part of requisition, directly I'll go to that particular part. Requisitions. This is again the procurement management कि क्या procurement officer होगा जो procurement के form को भरेगा, authorized signatories, then all these things how the vendors are being onboarded. Requisition and purchasing. करंट स्टोर्स डिपार्टमेंट ने क्या करा, रिक्विजिशन आया उसके पास, उसने करंट इन्वेंटरी लेवल देखा, फिर उसने एमआरपी रन करी, या अगर वो मैनुअली कर रहा तो वो देखेगा कि कितना चाहिए कितना नहीं चाहिए, एंड वेदर एग्जिस्टिंग स्टॉक सिचुएशन हमने सही करा है कि कंसीडर करा है कि नहीं करा है, एंड उसके बाद आप देखोगे रिक्वायरमेंट होएगा, देन परचेज रिक्विजिशन रेज होगा, देन अप्रूव पीआर कैसे होगा, सिस्टम ही अप्रूव करेगा बेस्ड ऑन शेड्यूल ऑफ अथॉरिटी या डीओए मैट्रिक्स, और लास्ट में प्रोक्योरमेंट होगा. I'm coming to that particular part where requisitions, again this one. This is again the receiving and warehousing. Vendor ने माल सप्लाई करा, यहाँ पे कंपनी के गेट पे आया, कंपनी के पास गेट पास में पहुंचा, कंपनी ने क्या करा, उसके सिक्योरिटी ने चेक करा, एक टैली शीट बनाई, उसके बाद उसने स्टोर को भेजा. आफ्टर सेंडिंग दिस स्टोर डिपार्टमेंट हैज प्रिपेयर्ड जीआरएन नोट, उसके बाद ये inventory ledger be hit one. Now this is important thing which I want to tell you one thing. Sometimes you also find out that after the GRN there is a process of the quality inspection, and जहां पे ये होता है सिस्टम में, वहां पे क्वालिटी इंस्पेक्शन होने के बाद ही इन्वेंट्री का स्टॉक हिट होता है. तो आप लोग कभी ये मत सोचना कि अगर गेट एंट्री हो गया तो इन्वेंट्री बुक्स में आ गई, ये कभी नहीं हो सकता. Then coming to the part of इनवॉइस प्रोसेसिंग एंड पेबल्स, प्रोक्योरमेंट ऑफिसर ने परचेज ऑर्डर रेज करा, देन इसके पास अकाउंट पेबल ऑफिसर के पास में गया, इनवॉइस आया, वेंडर्स, देन जीआरएन हुआ, उसके बाद ये सारी चीजें. इट्स अ वेरी सिंपल प्रोसेस. एंड होप एवरीवन इज क्लियर। अब मैं बात करता हूँ जहाँ पे सर्विस होगा वहां पे जीआरएन नहीं बनेगा, वहां पे सर्विस एंट्री शीट बनेगी। और सर्विस एंट्री शीट कौन बनाता है? यहाँ पे जीआरएन स्टोर डिपार्टमेंट बनाएगा सर्विस एंट्री शीट। जो डिपार्टमेंट सर्विसेज को कंज्यूम कर रहा है वो डिपार्टमेंट सर्विस एंट्री शीट बनाएगा। सो दिस इज वन ऑफ द मेजर डिफरेंसेस। This is again the payment processing which normally happens. I'm sure that everyone is aware about all these things. So let us understand the risk around each sub process. Hope it is clear to everyone above. Hope I have replied your answer, your questions answer. One clarification which I want, or you can say disclaimer, I want to tell that these are some of the illustrative risk which may differ upon time to time. Shailesh, any questions is there?
Uh, no, no, no.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Now coming to the part of procurement to planning, let us understand that yes, what are the common risks around the procurement planning? Now coming to the part of the procurement planning, these are some of the risk, illustrative risk. These are not the exhaustive risk. First of all, we discussed just we need to correlate that how these risks are relating with the particular process. एक तो हमने बोला कि जब मैंने प्रोक्योरमेंट प्लानिंग करी, प्रोक्योरमेंट प्लानिंग करते समय कितनी क्वांटिटी हमें मंगाना है, कितनी क्वांटिटी का रिक्वेस्ट रेज करना है, नो डिफाइंड अप्रूवल मैट्रिक्स हु कैन फाइनली that yes, these are the material which we require. Now coming to the part whether the existing stock situations have been considered or not. If the system is not linked with this particular, high chances that you may procure a material. Now the risk, so these are few of the risk, no linkages for the, or there is no rationale for the production plan. It means अगर हमें इस चीज को रोकना है तो क्या होना चाहिए? We should have some defined approval matrix. Whenever you are going to raise the requisition for procurement of the material, that should be supported by some proper justification notes. And third thing is, whatever the stock situations are there as on date, the stock situations as on date should be considered while raising the requisition. And yes, if it is a system driven, so in that particular case, there should be no option to edit the final output of the material requirement planning. So these are few of the controls. Now coming to the part, another gap is inaccurate or incomplete projection of the procurement plan, which we already discussed. That is procurement, and the control is procurement plan is reviewed and approved by the designated authority. The second thing is if you see into the normal industry, or in my case, the steel industry, you see that every day there is a demand forecasting meeting where they discuss that yes, whatever the item we require, whether all the items we have procured or not, whatever the what is the variations between budget versus actuals plan, What is the situation? Are there any situation where there's a change of plan? All these things which we need to discuss or which we need to implement as a part of the control procedures. Procurement planning not utilized for making purchase. This I have spoken. Now the thing is the best part. You have performed the audit, but you are not able to explain to the management that these are the few of the risk within the procurement functions, and these are the root cause, and these are the recommendation as an auditor which we want to give. Aaj, it's a very simple thing. Till that time you're not able to sell yourself, you can't do anything. Means understanding of the risk is very, very, very important thing. Now let's come to the next particular part. This is already with you all and you will get to our email. Now coming to the part of vendor selection process. Now, so before going to the risk, what we have written, let us understand from here that whether we are able to identify the risk or not. I want everyone to just ping on the chat box that these are the few risks which you feel. So, like, let me just tell you, like in case of advertisement, there's one of the high risk that there's a high possibility that you have not published the procurement, you have not published the procurement requirement in a leading newspaper, or if there's a process of a request for quotation, there's a high chances that you have not sent the mail to every potential vendors, including the latest vendor, or you can say that new vendor. ये रिस्क हो सकता है वहां पे, और अगर ये रिस्क है, सेकंड रिस्क ये भी हो सकता है कि जो आपने आरएफक्यू बनाई है उस आरएफक्यू में आपने कंटेंट क्लियर रखी नहीं है, inadequate preparation of the RFQ. Scope of work or scope of quantity, or you can say that whatever the case may be, is not clear. Payment terms is not clear. Packaging terms is not clear. Delivery terms is not clear. These are the things. These are few of the risk which we understand into the advertisement process. Now coming to the part of the vendors. अब सबके पास RFQ चले गया, ऐसा भी तो हो सकता है ना, आपने ना किसी एक वेंडर की मेल आईडी को गलत डाल दिया, आपको उस वेंडर को कोटेशन भेजना नहीं था बिकॉज वो वेंडर काम अच्छा करता है, कोटेशन वाइज कॉस्ट वाइज दैट वेंडर इज ऑलवेज L1 वेंडर, बट परचेजर डोंट वांट टू give the order to that particular vendor. This is again one of the risks. Or there's a high chances that you may, for bypassing the authority, you may split the requisition into multiple parts. So these are few of the risks into this particular process. Let us understand. Allow me for a second, please. So now if you see the thing that vendor management, selection of inappropriate vendors, which we were talking, that in your system, 20 vendors are there for a particular material or services. And if you see that out of 20 vendors, you have vendors. And yes, one more thing which is very important, and I can say this is one of the fraudulent area. not sending the RFQ to all the vendors in a single mail. Means there are 20 vendors and I have sent the requirement to all the vendors during the whole day. Few vendors in the morning, few vendors in the afternoon, few vendors in the evening, and few vendors into the night. No. It means that you are going to, or you are trying to hide the things, you are trying to, you can say that manipulate the things in terms of the selection of vendors. So whenever you are seeing, reviewing the entire process, you need to see whether, or you need to understand whether the requirement has been circulated to all the vendors in one single mail through BCC or not. So scope and communication, these two are very, very, very important things which we need to understand. And this will apply to material and services both, not for the particular for the material. Dependency on the single vendors. If I say about it is again, okay. Now the second thing is the thing you have circulated. We'll discuss this risk later on, but prior to that, we need to understand, suppose if you have circulated the RFQ to all the vendors, now the part coming is you have received the quotations. And whenever you have received the quotations, you have prepared the comparative statement. There is a high chance that comparative statements were not prepared well. Like 20 vendors, 12 vendor has given the same requirement what a company was expecting into the RFQ, but balance 8 vendor has mentioned something else with the minor changes into the quotations. So you need to understand whether there's an apple cut comparison or not. You cannot compare Apple versus Samsung. You cannot compare Apple versus Oppo or Vivo. You need to compare each and everything into one line. Now coming to the part, sir, there's a high chances that for any item, there may be a single vendor, definitely. For the larger machines, if you see, there's a concept called OEM, only equipment manufacturer. What to do in that particular case? In that particular case, you need to, there should be a proper authority matrix which says that in case of single vendor approval, or you can say that single vendor quotation, you need to obtain an approval from this particular authority before finalizing the order. So this is the thing which is very important. Now the second part is coming. I have talked about that 20 vendor list or the vendor to whom we have given the order into the past. But there may be again the chances. In that particular 20 vendors, we need to again drill down that understand out of that 20 vendors, 5 vendors were defaulted into the past in GST compliances, in TDS compliances, in delivery, in quality of the material. So we need to understand what is that about, whether the list of vendor is a good vendor list or good and bad. Means material. And why we talk about the approved list of vendor? We require to save our time cost to discuss the important things with that vendor rather than, because if we are discussing any requirement with the defaulter vendor, there's a high chances that next time again they will default. And the second risk, which we discussed already, non-performing vendors continue to exist on the impaneled list of vendors. Definitely, if there's a no process, because every time you perform the vendor evaluation, and if we talk about vendor performance evaluation, so it depends upon certain criteria that whether the cost is correct or not, delivery within the timeline or not, quality, rejections is very, very, very less. Fourth, responsiveness to the vendors. Correct. Fifth, the process existed at their plant. So these, you can see that these are some of the risks around the vendor management. Again, this is the risk which we talk about. Now the thing is, someone may ask, yes, definitely these are the risks, but what is the root cause? How we can say that this risk arises due to this? So again, the root cause, generally it extracted from the discussions with the process owners. It's a transactional issue or it's a design level issue or whatever case. Now this is vendor master management. Everything you have finalized and all those things. Now coming to the part of vendor onboarding. अब vendor onboarding आप करोगे, system में vendor को register करोगे. If that particular vendor is not registered, so there may be two cases. One, the vendor is registered. Second one is the vendor is not registered. So as an auditor, what I'll do? If the vendor is registered, then I'll see whether there is any duplicate vendor or not. Whether all the details which you are mentioned into the detail of that particular vendor, whether that detail is correct or not, supporting documentation is available or not. Whether in case of any change in the bank account, whether there is any defined approval mechanism or not. These are the control mechanism which we check, or you can say that risk which we check at the time of existing vendor. New vendor. How to create the new vendor in the two system? We need to check whether the proper documentation has been obtained or not. Validation process is well in place or not. Before creating new vendor, there is no process to check whether there is any duplicate vendor or not. In case of MSME vendors, whether the proper declaration has been taken along with the Uddam certificate or not. These are few of the risks. Duplicate we already discussed. Inactive vendors, blocked vendor. Suppose if the vendor who is not registered, who is registered into the system, they are not doing the business within last 6, 7, 8 years. We need to review and we need to block that particular vendor. Why? Because there's a high chances that with a similar name of the vendor, you may pass a transaction into the incorrect way. Now coming to the part of blocked vendor. In case of the blocked vendor, what we need to check? Whether the blocking and unblocking process which is into place, whether that process is well defined or not. Incomplete, which we already discussed. And yes, someone may ask, what is the greater risk? Can we imagine this thing? There's a high chances, and normally this applies in case of services. There's a high chances that there is a relation between vendor and employee, company's employee. Can be the case? Yes, definitely that be the case. Then what to do? So as an auditor, what analysis I'll perform? Or you can say that during the process understanding, we need to understand whether there's any process to obtain declaration from the vendor that there is no close relative working within this company. And from the data analytics perspective, as an auditor का कीड़ा समझने के लिए हमें क्या करना पड़ेगा? We need to verify the employee master and vendor master both, whether there are any vendors with the similar address name, similar employee ID, similar email ID, similar bank account. And if you found out certain cases, this is one of the biggest fraud. Okay, correct. Now coming to the part of purchase requisition. In case of purchase requisition, it means that purchase requisition, if we have, it's a manual process, then the format issue. But If it is into the system, then you need to understand whether that PR is linked to the system or not. If we talk about the PR linked to system, means whether the PR is linked to the budget allocated to that particular category. This is one of the important thing. And now we need to understand whether that process is well in place or not. Why I am saying this is important? If you see in a best company, control is like this: at time of requisition itself, if the budget is not there, system will not allow to process the requisition to the next stage. Why? Because it is a red signal or alarming signal to that particular department that yes, your business policy is same, and still you have not, you can say that, revised the budget and not obtained the approval. This is one of the important things. Now coming to the part of PR, whether it is a system approved or not delegation, but I'll not see, except unless and until if these PR has not been splitted into two parts, DOA cannot be validated. Sorry, you can say that violated. PR not according to requirement. Again, this is if this is manual, but these things you will not find in the recent cases. Now coming to the part of requisition, and this again, RFQ, which were discussing. We were discussing about the RFQ. That what is the risk around this one? RFQ हमने पहले ही बोला था कि RFQ का फॉर्मेट सही नहीं है, स्कोप प्रॉपरली डिफाइन ही नहीं है, सारे वेंडर्स को RFQ विद इन द टाइम नहीं गए हैं. It means this is again one of the case. Let us understand. Code comparison not documented. PO does not include standard terms and conditions. Now let us understand one thing which is very important. That if we talk about RFQ, after RFQ, comparative statement is there. And into the comparative statement, what risk we need to understand from the risk perspective. That comparative statement have been prepared, but that is not matching as per the RFQ or quotations received. I'm just giving you one simple example. So there's a material called welding rod. So welding rod, it all depends upon brand or vendor to vendor. Some vendor may make it a pack of 12 per packet, some 14 per packet or 20 per packet. If you see comparison, how you will do the comparison? You need to do the comparison, one-to-one comparison. It means you need to convert the entire quantity into the equivalent quantity of the base. Means everything's or every quantity, every quotations quantity needs to be converted into 12, 14 or whatever the case may be. जिसको भी आप base ले लो. And normally I have found out, at least in my 9 years, at least around 3 to 4 times with a good industry where these things were not done. And we have paid the excess. These are the things which normally at the top management level skips. PO does not include the standard terms and conditions. Definitely that is very important. And if I talk about PO, it also talk about the service orders. It also talk about the agreement. So like confidentiality agreement, delivery terms, like penalties, indemnity, force majeure clause. Why these things are important? Let us understand. In case of COVID, in the contract where these force majeure clauses were not there, a lot of companies suffered a heavy loss. Because if you have communicated to someone कि नहीं ये तो हम करेंगे ही, बट आप मेरे को बताओ अगर ऐसा कुछ केस आता है तो अगर फोर्स मेजर क्लॉज है तो यू कैन ऑटोमेटिकली terminate the contract. There's no need to give the notice. So these things are the important things. Unauthorized purchases again, which we talk about. There are three levels of approval. Let us take one example. For purchasing of goods or services worth rupees 5 lakh, we need to take the approval first from the purchase department, then purchase head, then finance head, and then plant head. I need to skip the approval of the plant head. Then what I'll do? It's a big question. I'll split this particular 5 lakh PO into 2,50,000 and 2,50,000, or 2,51,000, 2,49,000 into two purchase orders. It will skip at the level of either finance or purchase. इस केस में तो डीओए में क्या लिखा हुआ है आपके कि अप टू 5 लाख रुपीस या 5 लाख एंड अबव कि जो भी पीओ होंगे दैट विल बी फाइनली अप्रूव्ड बाय द प्लांट हेड. But in this particular case, you have splitted both the POs. So this is again the fraud mechanism, splitting of the POs. Excess purchase, which we already discussed. Now coming to the part of GRN. What risk you may identify here? I may identify the risk here that physical goods have been delivered 20 quantity, but invoice quantity was 100 quantity. There is no maker checker mechanism. Stores department is the final authority to prepare the GRN or service. So at a good company or good process, you will find out there will be a maker checker mechanism. The quality you were expecting that particular material, that quality you have not received. So these are few of the risks. At time of making GRN, your weighbridge is not integrated within the system. And if this is not the case, you can change. Your weighbridge may show the quantity of 100 kg, but you can mention to the GRN that you have received 120 kgs. These type of risk which you will identify into the material receiving process. Again, one risk, what do you identify? You can identify one risk, again, the segregation of duties. The person who is maintaining the security gate entry, the same person is preparing the GRN. Or the person who is preparing the GRN, the same person is making the quality checks. यहाँ पे तो fraud है ना. These are the risks which you can identify. This is the risk. Good received not as per PO, which we already discussed. Good received without PO, this you will find out very least cases because this is the basic control within the system. Good physically received is less than the invoice quantity, which we have already discussed. कि मेरा physical quantity 100 है और 50 है, but invoice quantity मेरी 100 है. मेरे पास कोई market checker नहीं है, मैंने बना दिया. Good received in excess of the order quantity. This will not be a risk till the time an exceptional excess quantity we have received. Delay in updating, yes, correct. I don't want to clear the vendor invoice. मेरे को vendor से चाहिए. I need money from vendor. Till the time I'm not getting the money from the vendor, I'll tell a vendor's transporter to unload the goods and I'll sign on the physical paper, but I'll not make GRN into system. And if there's a delay into the GRN, there's a high chance means there's a cases where you will find out delay in invoicing. मुझे vendor से तो पैसे चाहिए ना. This is the case. This is again which we discussed. Now coming to the part of invoice processing. Let us understand one thing which is very important. At time of, I'll take the SAP as an environment, or you can say best ERP, Tally, both you can say. Once everything is okay, material has been received and issued for consumption. Now coming to the part of invoicing. Invoice was having of 10 quantity at the rate of 20 rupees. And the freight was the separate line item. As the finance person, what I can say, if there is no maker checker mechanism, I can pass the invoice with a higher amount of freight. Can be that can this be the case? Yes, definitely. This. Now coming to the part. Now coming to the case. इस केस में तो मेरा ये रिस्क सबसे बड़ा है. Person who is processing the invoice is the same person who is making the payment. Person who is processing the invoice is a person who can make the changes into the vendor master. मुझे वेंडर के बैंक अकाउंट डिटेल में चेंज करना है. मैंने इनवॉइस भी बुक करा. मैं ही एक ऐसा बंदा जो पेमेंट प्रोसेसिंग की लिस्ट बनाता हूँ. And the same person, what they will do, and the same person will change or are having the authority to change into the vendor master. I can change the vendor's bank. I will mention my bank account detail. And when the payment is going to process, this is process in my account. It means that this is one of the biggest risk. Delay in processing of the invoice. The stores department has submitted the invoice in detail, but vendors, I want to collude with vendor. I said to the vendor that although your payment terms is 30 days, but I'll process your payment within 10 days. But I need 1% in cash. Before due date processing of the payment is again one of the biggest risk I can say. These are few of the risk. If I talk about unauthorized invoice processing, inaccurate, then correct, then payment to vendors. If you see, these are the cases. Segregation of duties between the person making responsible for invoice accounting and person making payment to the vendors. These are the major risks. Delayed payment, early payment vendors and delayed payment both are the risk. Cash discount not available. PO में कैटेगरी है, बट सिस्टम कंट्रोल इज नॉट प्लेस. तो उस केस में आप कैश डिस्काउंट लिया ही नहीं. और आपने क्या कराना, वेंडर को बोला यार तुमने मेरे को कैश डिस्काउंट नहीं दिया, ये पैसे में मेरे अकाउंट में तुम ट्रांसफर कर दो. दिस इज गोइंग टू बी द बिगेस्ट रिस्क in the invoice processing process. And one of the again the big thing, whatever the advance amount have processed, that advance amount I have not that advance amount I have not adjusted along with the bill. So there's a high chances that open advances are there into the vendor ledger. And there is also no process to review the advances lying into the vendor account. So this is again one of the biggest risk. Inaccurate accounting of payment, again, this is a very basic things. So these are few of the risks around the procurement to pay process. If I talk about, so let us understand. So these are few of the risks, but if you go deeper into the transaction, you will find a lot of other transactions. But the rest of these risks will be around the same risk. There may be n number of issues into the RFQ process, but the risk will turn around कि वो vendor related party तो नहीं है, कि कहीं ऐसा तो नहीं कि वो vendor inactive है या blocked vendor है. And just for the count purpose, I have sent the mail to the blocked and inactive vendor also. So the crux of the risk, or you can say the theme, or you can say the design level of the risk will turn around, will be roaming around these type of risk. But yes, at an operational level, the deeper you will go into the transaction, you will find out more deeper risk, but design level or high level risk will be the same risk. So these are few of the risk around the procurement two-way process. And now I want to take the questions. Shailesh, are there any questions? Because I'm done from my side. Shailesh, are there any questions?
No, that's why I was checking, Gauravji. No, no, there are no separate such any questions. We will wait for a couple of minutes more.
Definitely,
So
definitely,
if
sir.
there are any more questions on the subject, so
Correct.
attendees may write their questions so we can ask the speaker. There is one question, Gauravji, by
Yes, sir.
Laban Banerjee. He wants to explain the
Yes.
effect of open PO on treasury.
Okay, correct. Definitely. Plabanji, understand to explain the questions in a better way. See, we understand that open PO, again, this is not the financial things. Okay. But now from the treasury perspective, that how much commitment you are carrying. Suppose for the capex item, you are having a, you can say that open PO of around 20 crores, and you have limit. You have limit, or you can say that you have the bank balance around 50 crores. But for the time being, these 20 crores will impact on the treasury from the perspective of the outflow of the fund. This is more relevant from the perspective of the bank financing if we talk about, because this is the already, you can say that when you are going to take again re-avail the facility, this is again, you can say the bank will consider that what is the open PO or what is the commitment you are already carrying. So this is one of the case of open PO impacting on the treasury part. I can see that there's a question asked by the Ruben Rebelo. How do you ensure a blacklisted vendor does not come with another name? Definitely correct. I think this is one of the great question. So Ruben, the best part is whenever you are onboarding a new vendor, you need to assess the history of that particular vendor. So, like the case, I'm just giving you one example which I have identified in one of the largest steel manufacturing plant around 4 years back. The case, the same vendor, particular vendor was registered into X name, and they have submitted to the RFQ another name. And the original vendor was having the same address what the new vendor was having the same address. And the party was based out of Calcutta. And during the onboarding of the vendor, the MDM team also not did not able, they were not able to validate the address and relationship party. There was no process around the relationship declaration. But when we get into deeper, we identified that yes, these are the subsidiary company. And chairman of the entire these 10 subsidiaries or 12 subsidiaries are the same. So these things can be controlled at the time of vendor onboarding. So you need to check as a process, you can need to check the relationship, you need to check the address, you need to check the promoter background detail, whether the particular promoter is not linked to this particular vendor or not. So these are the cases.
Yes, thank you, Gaurav, for this query address, this query. Now, there is one question from S. Ramesh. He is asking, what frauds have you witnessed in P2P process?
So can you please repeat?
What frauds have you witnessed in P2P process?
Oh, that's good. Since P2P is my one of the, you can say that favorite area, and this I can definitely say, and even when anyone applies the 360-degree mind, they will find the fraud indicators at a, I'll not say that in a matured organization, but I'll tell you some of the example. So I was explaining the example earlier on the how do you ensure that blacklisted vendor is not coming up with another name. So what we noticed when I was, you can say that verifying the entire procurement process of particular function of material, I identified that the relationship declaration was not obtained. There was no as such process. And even into the comparative statement, the procurement department has not declared that these are the related party vendors. And in that particular case, the nomenclature to obtain the quotation from three parties, they were able to justify. But sooner when we identified that no, these are the same party, just to obtain the business from this company, they have placed the quotations from the different name. And they have ultimately this discussion went up to the CPO level, Chief Procurement Officer level, and then this particular vendor has been blocked. So this is one of the case with them. Second case which I talk about into the procurement to pay process. Recently, we were doing the audit for one of the listed company having a market cap of around 80,000 crore. There's a process called procurement of casting. And in that particular case, the casting procurement is done on a theoretical weight basis rather than actual weight basis. So these theoretical weight were defined around 10 years back, and the procurement department did not validated the actual weight of the material what they were receiving. And in turn, these cases, what we identified that for a particular vendor, a certain particular vendor, they were supplying the material beyond the tolerance limit of the theoretical weight, what has been defined or agreed with the vendor into the agreement. This was the second case. And third case, which is simply around 3 years back, what we identified that there was a case, although there were no financial loss, but yes, that was the case where the fraud was proved by us that the person who was booking the invoice, the same person was making the list for the payment. And the same person was the final authority to make the payment that which vendor needs to be paid first, which vendor needs to be paid second. And we have identified that same person had made the changes of the vendor account based on the verbal communication from the vendor that bank account needs to be changed. There were no supporting documents. So these are few of the frauds which we have identified. Hope I have explained what you were expecting.
Yes, with this, shall we go to the next query? That is risks. What are the risks around debit, credit, and fictitious purchase returns? Then again, this is question from Vaibhav Pathak.
Okay, what are the risks around? Huh. What are the risks
Debit.
around debit note, credit note, or fictitious purchase return? Oh, that's good then. So let me tell you one example that around the fictitious purchase return, or you can say that I'm just giving you one example. So prior to GST and post GST, a lot of companies were following that they should raise a purchase order for the negative quantity. Okay. What happened in this particular case? We have noticed that purchase department has raised the negative PO, and these PO were not linked with to the original purchase order. So in this particular case, what you can identify that material which you have received and you have consumed, what they did, they have raised the negative purchase order. And in that particular negative purchase order, that purchase order were open for a longer period. And in that particular case, there's a high chances that once the vendor will submit their debit or credit note and vice versa, there's a high chances that you record the credit note and you have raised the negative purchase order for return of the goods. So there's a high chances that you can give the incorrect credit to the vendor. And another example from the debit perspective. From the debit note perspective, what you can say that the two vendors are in the same name. Vendor have given, because whenever you are going to accepting a debit note, there should be a proper justification, and that debit note should be accepted by the finance department only if it is approved by the user department. There was no such process. Finance department were just passing the debit note based on the communication from the vendor. And this is again because if you have received the bad quality of the material and you have consumed it, later on vendor is issuing the debit note. This is the double loss to the, you can say, vendor or the company, vice versa case.
Shall I move on to second query?
Definitely,
Gagan?
definitely, sir.
Yes. What we check in case of foreign payments? This query is by Vikash Agrawal.
What we check in foreign payment, definitely, sir. When we check in the case of foreign payment, if we talk about import, so in that particular case, we need to check that whether the proper bill of entry, whether the proper custom documents are well in place or not. And first of all, the important things which we need to check when you are going to make the foreign payment to for the first time to any vendor, we need to check the history, whether there is any guarantee from the vendor. Because suppose if you have to make the payment and vendor has not supplied the material, so there's a high chances that you may lose the money.
Yes. Now there is what? Please explain how to check the procurement plan with the production and the sales plan by Smita Acharya.
Okay, Smita, the very important thing is the simple point. You need to take the file where the output has been budgeted, that is for this particular month company is going to sell these particular of material, and that file should be approved. This is one of the basic things, and from there you need to check from the production team how they derive the input required, because sometimes these things are very technical and we need to understand from the production people if you want to procure the material based on this particular output, what is the percentage of factors you have considered. And based on that, if this is a manual process, you need to check whether the existing stock situations have been considered or not. So these are the things how you can check. It's a reverse working basically.
Okay. Now this is the query by Selva Ganesh, which seems to be much more practical. That is whether P2P processes and controls are almost same on most of the popular ERP software used by leading companies.
Whether P2P is version control almost definitely, Selva. I think you catch it rightly. in, I can say definitely, be it ERP or be it SAP process, at least the basic controls are seen across all the tools.
Now this is the last query by Satyam. He's saying any specific coach to enroll to change profile from stat audit to internal audit with 2 years of experience in stat audit. So I think Satyam ji, you need to reach to the chairman
Definitely
IASB
correct.
or the secretary. They are the right person to address this query. Uh, yes, these are the very few questions. With this, I guess there are no more questions. So I can assume your session is much more elaborate. So people are very much curious about the session.
Thank you, definitely, sir. I think there is no more questions also.
So we can conclude now, है ना? As a last leg, or
Yeah,
shall we
definitely.
wait? Yes, 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 yes.
I think we can conclude. Let us, if Arun is there, Arun, can we conclude?
Yes, 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 we can conclude.
Yes, sir.
So I will go to the conclusion now. Thank you, Gaurav sir, for a deeply insightful session. Uh, we have also a brief question and answer queries. As we close, I extend our sincere thanks to C.A. Chandrasekhar Chitle sir for his guidance and present under his able leadership as the chairman of ISB. This wonderful series has been held. C.A. Gaurav Mishra ji for delivering a rich and relevant session. Then we have Vice Chairman of this committee, C.A. Ravi Kumar Patwaji. In his absentia, we are also very much thankful to him as well. The entire team, the technical support team, the secretary of this ISB, Arunji, Bansal Madam ji. We are very much thankful to everyone who had attended, to all the participants for your time and active engagement. On last note, don't forget to submit your feedback and claim your unstructured CPA through the ICA portal. है ना? I request all
Definitely.
the attendees to have your feedback and please avail your unstructured CP through the portal. With this, we conclude today's webinar. Stay informed, stay compliant. Thank you and have a great evening
Thank you so
ahead.
much, sir.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, sir.